I was asked, how am I going to change the world? Be considered a change maker. But how am I supposed to know? I don't see myself becoming some great philanthropist, someone on the front lines of a movement, a politician for change. But there's more than one right way. My answer is a conscious existence. It may not be the right answer, but it's my answer. Consciousness of self, others, and the world. Ask the hard questions, then think, and don't give up. Look a little deeper. Question everything, not just go with the flow, just because it's the norm. And just because it's the norm, it doesn't mean it's the right way, and it doesn't mean that things can't change. This mindset of questioning leads to awareness, and awareness is powerful as it forces you to challenge your assumptions and look at the world more closely. Just being conscious is an act of protest. We all have our own journeys to awareness, but here are some of my principles of consciousness that I've discovered along the way. My first principle, and I know you might hear this one a lot today, but it's okay to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is how we connect with others and how we let others know we care. I know it's scary, but it's okay. In our first peer mentor group meeting, my group being with our leader Candace, Ethan, Sidra, Rowan, and Melanie and me, we had just watched Brene Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability, and we were discussing it before participating in a practice of vulnerability, answering the 36 questions to fall in love. Initially in this discussion, I brought up the fact how I'm not sure how comfortable I am with vulnerability. I wasn't sure if I could really participate in the way that I was expected. I didn't know if I could truly be vulnerable. And this moment for me truly demonstrates the growth that I had over the last year. Because at this point, I'm sure that I can say all 10 lovely individuals I've spent the last 6 months with will tell you they can't get me not to be at this point if they tried. Love you guys. Growth is not necessarily done in one big step, and that certainly wasn't the case for me. But it has come in little steps over time, no step forward too small, no step back too big to overcome. My second principle is there's no one right way. When talking about Ghana, some might say how it was a tough time, or how much they struggled, or something along the lines of, I grew a lot while I was there. Although some things are forgotten when talking about Ghana, sometimes the positive aspects that we overlook. But I thought I had a really interesting conversation with my host brother, Sam, while living there about his goals, his aspirations of being educated, studying abroad, getting a master's. But even with all of this, he still said that he would want to come back to live in Kuntumre if he could live anywhere in the world. It might not have been the place for me, but it was the place for him. It doesn't mean that there's a right way or a wrong way. And just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. And another example of there not being a right way is in Maytao, one of the groups conducted their media project on the view of success that was held in the community, which is deeply rooted in collectivist ideas, where the success of the group outweighed the success of an individual, which is greatly contrasted by the more Western ideal of success, which is individualistic, that we would have assumed. My third and last principle of consciousness is to laugh. To laugh at yourself. It's truly encouraged. The ability to look at the positive side and to laugh at myself has been one of the most important barriers I broke down this year. One of the greatest skills I've acquired on my TBB year. One has the power to control how they look at life. When I tell someone I got a botfly in Ghana, the response usually ranges somewhere from how horrible to ew, gross. While I don't recommend the experience, It was one of my favorite memories of the year. Although I know this is a little weird, I would even say it's a positive one. I was surrounded by my friends supporting me, while Aaron expertly removed it. And it is definitely something I will not forget. And here's a little limerick that's helped me along the way. When life gets you down, it's easy to frown, but turn that frown upside down and try on positivity for a change. I have found that the little things matter, and a little conscious positivity can really change your day. Small acts of kindness and positivity can change someone's day. So why not participate? For me, in the past year, highlights weren't necessarily the places we were, though they were quite amazing, but they were the people and the conversations I've had along the way. Small things do make a difference. They have impacted my life more than I will ever know. These principles of consciousness that I formed are a small part in a larger change in myself that has happened throughout the last year, though I still have a lot to learn and a lot of questions to ask. But I always try to remind myself of these 3 simple principles every day to try to be my best self. It's okay to be vulnerable. There's no right way. Laugh at yourself. These are the principles that I fostered and instilled in myself to be an agent of change. Because in life, the little things matter. The first step has to be taken, and you have to be open to taking it. In life, I try to tackle the small problems first, because you can succeed in moving a mountain by first carrying away the small stones. Being conscious is the first act in a rebellion. Own your own power. Thank you for listening.
Yay! Everyone wants to applaud.
Yay!
Yay!
Thank you. That was great.
Well, great job, Skylar. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm wondering if anyone has any questions for Skylar. Lots of bravos. Well done. Ooh, all kinds of questions coming in. Okay. All right. So we have a question from Nick Manning. How have you started taking your power back now that you are home?
I think through kind of a couple of things. I think like especially being here in quarantine and like with my lovely family, just kind of engaging in some of the things that I did on TVB, engaging in conversations, but also just like looking at the positive aspects of like being like in a form of quarantine, like having to stay home, but instead of like being like, oh no, I'm stuck at home, like using that time to like reintegrate or like do a little spring cleaning or exercise.
Wonderful. And then another question from Robin. Is there a change leader you see as a hero?
I'm sure if I looked for one, I bet there are plenty, but I don't currently have one in mind.
Okay, great. And then we have a question from Zach. So just being conscious is an act of protest. Love that quote. Are there any moments that made you realize your own growth in a small way?
I think there were moments, especially in Ghana, when we had like conversations about development or like public health, and moments such as like I didn't assume the way that I knew in my past was the right way. I'm like, wait, why do we do that? Or like, do we necessarily like need toilets? Like, what are the problems with latrines? Like, kind of like more questioning, like, just because like Ghana's culturally different, like that doesn't mean it's like a wrong way or incorrect. It's just different, and the fact that like different can also be correct.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then we had one more. So Candace says, tell us about your plans for university.
I'm planning to study engineering and business at Lehigh University through the Integrated Business and Engineering program, which is a 5-year dual degree program.